are not able to take the same type of assessments as their peers. The assessments start in 3rd grade. At the 3rd grade level, let's use Katie. Katie can't hold a pencil. Katie can't sit for more than, in 3rd grade, she was sitting for like 5 minutes, if that, okay? Katie was having a lot of behaviors. There was no way Katie was going to be able to participate in the Maryland State Assessment. Katie couldn't have done the mod either. So at that point, as an IEP team, we met and we looked at the criteria for the ALT. And Katie was a student that was found eligible for the ALT MSA, okay? It's an alternative assessment, it's a portfolio, it's worked on from September to March. It has goals that are aligned to the reading and math curriculum, and in 5th and 8th grade science, I think? 5th and 8th grade science, okay. So, that is what my Katie is doing. Now, all students should be working for a diploma. We have heard Dr. Nancy Grasmick, our retired state superintendent, say, students should not determine that they're not working for a diploma until their last year of school, okay? Students, even if you don't have disability, you can go to school till you're 21. And that's in Maryland high school regs. So Dr. Grasmick says we need to wait till that 12th grade year. Well, if you are taking an ALT assessment, my Katie then, in 3rd grade, it was determined by taking an ALT assessment, she's going to be on a certificate track, not a diploma track, okay? Now, students do, and one of the things I researched when I made this decision, and it is a decision that we discussed rather in depth, was, do students go back and forth? Can they? If you're on an ALT, can you go back? And you can. And if you're on an MSA, can you go to an ALT? And you can. But I think it's important to point out to you about the ALT, okay? Because they're the students that we're saying are not going to be able to get a diploma. Now, am I saying we don't have high standards and we don't base on state curriculum? No, absolutely not. We still have high standards. You know, we are still having standards-based IEPs.
But you can't know in 3rd grade what your child's going to be capable of in 9th grade.
No, you can't. That's tough. So that's where you talk to the team and say, all right, let's try to stay with the MSA. I mean, at that point, that wasn't an option for Kate. Is there now that we're working on stuff, I see so much improvement? She can't go back now.
There is, for a very small segment of the population, there are disorders that we all reasonably understand are going to prevent a child from becoming academically successful. There are disorders like Rett syndrome, what Rich Santorum's daughter has, which is trisomy 13 and trisomy 18. Those are very, very, very profoundly disabling conditions, and those kids are not going to achieve academically beyond a very limited capacity. And that's exactly why Kim is saying it's only like a 1%. That's all the feds would allow the states to sort of siphon off and say, for sure, these kids are not going to be able to. Everyone else
tends to try to coerce parents into putting their kids on the alt MSA. And all we can assume is that it has to do with if they take the regular MSA, they're going to bring the scores down. But as a parent, I don't care.
That's right.
Well, and that's something that you share with the IEP team. You know, I understand you, but we have to look at my daughter, where she's now, what she's going on. You know, there's, with my daughter with Angelman syndrome, I don't know if any of you watch Ellen, but there's a new study going on where there's a drug that they're hoping that this will cure Angelman syndrome. So I don't know if it's possible. We'll still have the autism to work with, but if this happens, then you can guarantee we're up in that expectation and there's going to be a lot of changes. So you see what I mean? Like it's not a be-all, end-all. Yes?
So I'm confused. Did you say you can go back from alt to the mod MSA?
Well, you can go back from alt to the MSA, yes, you can.
Okay, because then you said something about, well, it's too late for Katie, she can't go back. Maybe I misunderstood.
No, it's never too late. I mean, she could, let's say, right now, I couldn't switch her where she is now, but they're talking about a cure.
Okay, so because of where she's functioning right now, you couldn't switch her?
No, I
But
can't
if
switch
she
where
was-
she is now, but who knows,
But
next
if
year?
she were functioning higher, even in ninth grade, you could switch back to the.
Yes, yes, yes. She's not in a, it's not a, you have to stay here forever. Now, I was very specific when I looked at this, so I can tell you there are students, because one of the women on our floor, I asked her specifically, has someone happened? And she said yes. And so I was happy to hear that. Yes.
Thanks for pointing this out. Actually, I had an attorney help a parent look at mod versus alt MSA. That was the whole team meeting, because it was going to determine the whole future. So it is an important thing to remember.
It is, it's very important. And it's hard. I have a friend of mine whose daughter, she's on the line. What do you do? And so she told the team, this year the daughter's in second grade, she told the team that she wasn't comfortable making the decision. She's going to think about it in the summer. And I have a feeling she's going to stay with MSA, another year, start it in third grade, let's see how she does.
And you're absolutely right. This is part of the dynamic tension that exists between school systems and families. NCLB required that we have high expectations for everyone. And so all this pressure has been put on local school systems and local schools for achievement. And so then we're in this pissing contest
Which
because
is unfortunate.
poor children,
The kid gets
English
lost in that
language
fight.
learners and/or special ed, and some kids could be 2 or 3 of those, are bringing down the scores. And so that sort of has fueled the fire. If you've been paying attention, states are asking for waivers of a lot of the aspects of NCLB because perhaps it wasn't the most thoroughly thought out expectation on the part of the federal government. You cannot actually legislate that every child be at least an average learner, that, there's certain things that are sort of beyond even the United States Congress. And so there is some backpedaling on this because it's done exactly what you said. The parents of the typically developing kids are now, resentful of the children with disabilities because it's bringing down the scores rather than sort of siphoning out some of the differences. And I was looking at some of this data, and even when we siphon it out, the free and reduced meals kids are one group, the English language learner kids are another group, and the special ed kids are a third group. Well, some could be in 2 or 3 of those groups, and we don't have a way actually of unaggregating or lumping those numbers. So it has caused a lot of hard feelings on both sides and a lot of frustration sort of across the board. And I think now you're seeing a period where we're backtracking on that a little bit.
Now, transition. Once again, as I said earlier, it starts at age 14. And the student is involved. Katie, all of my children go to their IEP meetings. Alexandria has been a wonderful advocate since kindergarten. Katie likes to come and say hello. That's it. And actually she doesn't like it, but we make her. Well, now she's 14, she's going to be at the meeting. They interview her. Her teacher developed cards to interview her. It's really, really important, even at a young age, as we look at transition, to have that child involved in their meetings. ESY. ESY is extended school year. It is not summer school, and it is not to learn any new skills.
And it was not part of the original legislation. This occurred in the mid-'80s in Pennsylvania. There was a court case, Armstrong versus Klein, which had to do with regression recoupment, and the argument being that you'd spend 9 months into the school year to get the kid up to a certain level. They'd be somewhere in June, they would go home for 12 weeks, nothing would happen, they would come back in September, and they would have, all children regress, but they would have regressed significantly, so that you then had to spend a portion into the next school year getting the kid back to where they were in June. So the point of ESY, and it's sort of expanded beyond that, but it is to keep the kids at the levels that they are at the end of the school year. So as Kim said, it's not to continue improving, but it's to at least maintain, and if they're, sometimes you're at a really critical point and you just know that in another week or two that kid is going to walk or do whatever.
Right.
So you would continue to provide a minimum of services. Only about 10% of the children in Maryland receive extended school year services. So it's a very small percentage of the total number.
It seems to be related to critical life skills as opposed to just
Yeah,
general education.
and
right?
you'll see here what what the IEP team discusses. And, you know, that's very interesting because different IEP teams have different takes on critical life skills. So that's something, as a part of the IEP team, to explain why you think certain things are critical life skills.
That's what I found, it was very subjective.
It is.
And we have not said this to you, but we're going to now, and I have to take a deep breath. Never, ever, 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 ever go to an IEPT meeting by yourself. Take your next door neighbor, take your mother-in-law. It doesn't matter. They don't have to know a thing about IDEA. You need another set of eyes and ears. You need someone else that you can debrief with. It would be nice if they knew your kids, so because you can't think. I'm telling you, I know this law, and I know 504, and I was just a parent at my daughter's first 504 meeting, and if I'd had an Uzi, I would have taken the whole team out. And it was one of those aha moments, like, oh wow, you know, because when it's your kid, you cannot think clearly. My nephew developed schizophrenia at 14. I went to all of his 504, IEP, you know, I was great. I mean, I was a really effective advocate, because even though I knew him and I was emotionally involved, I could think, because it wasn't my kid. And that makes all the difference in the world. So really, really, never go to these meetings. Even when we really don't want them to be intimidating, but they simply are, simply by the number of people in the room, you know, all of whom have degrees and all of whom are sitting like this. And they're required by law to be there. It's not like we're deliberately trying to stack it to make you feel intimidated. Everyone there has to be there. But it is very, very helpful for you to have at least one other, you can bring as many people as you want, but at least one other person, so that, you know, afterwards you can say, do you believe what that teacher said? And your friend can say, well, she didn't really say that. You know, because we hear things sometimes differently than were actually said or meant. So it is very helpful to have somebody. I think it's also good to sort of have some external people in the room.
So we talked about this before. This is just talking about the signature. Now, in Partners for Success, believe it or not, 9 out of 10 problems really are breakdowns in communication. So what happens when things don't work? Really, the most important thing is to talk to the person, the teacher, the service provider. You can contact a building administrator, local family support, and I have those numbers. I'll go over what's in your packet. You know, is there conflict resolution in your area? Contacting your local state, your local director of special ed, contacting us at the state. Now, the last 3 things are filing a state complaint, filing for mediation, and filing for due process. These are your rights. These are your rights. I would never, ever, ever minimize your rights. What I'm going to say is I never recommend these first, second, third, because you're going to be working with an IEP team. This team is going to work with you and your child. When things get to where it's not working, it's hard to build those bridges and come back. There are many, many steps before these. Not to say that these shouldn't be used, but what I caution you is 9 out of 10, you wouldn't need this. But there is that 1 out of 10 where these...
And look at number 5. We probably should expand that a little more. We have worked with the, there's a mediation, community mediation Maryland, and we encourage the use of what we call a facilitated IEP meeting. Good, Kathy has them. Where an external mediator, a trained mediator, will come and assist in running the IEP team meeting, so that it's facilitated by an outside source, so everybody gets to be heard in a different form. So if you're having issues with your IEP teams, that is certainly something that we very much encourage, is to request a facilitator at the next IEP team meeting.
Yeah. Now, IEP, I like to think of it as I'm an informed, effective partner, or I'm an informed, effective parent. Here's some resources. This is the Maryland State Department of Education website. Now, I'm going to come over here and show you what happens. This
I know you'll be shocked, but we get feedback that it's a very difficult to access website.
It's not the easiest. All right, so here's what you do. You go to divisions, you go down to special education and early intervention. You're going to come over here, and it's going to say resources. Go to publications, and then everything we have is there. Now, there's also some other Oh, look, here it is. I did put the second page in. See, here it is, publications right here. Okay, then there is a process guide for IEPs. This is really useful. I recommend going there. There's the Early Childhood Gateway, and then yay, Maryland Learning Links. This is the special education website for all special education in Maryland. And I recommend going here. Now, can I go in here? You should have, did you have a thing in here? Yes, you do. Okay. All right, the first thing I have is the understanding document. All of these documents are located under publications of the MSDE website. I like this because this goes into a little more detail about special education. Building IEPs, this is fun. This is really a fun book. This is easily to understand. It has some checklists. This is a little fun. This one goes into a little more detail. Now, what else I have for you is I have that facilitated IEP meetings brochure. I have, this is our 1-800, it's really 855 number, that you can call us anytime. Well, 9 to 3, but we're not there at 3 in the morning. But, and then in here are all the local family support people who are there to support families who have children with disabilities. I have an awesome bookmark that says Idea Rules. And then I also have, as a little gift, as a thank you, this is a flyer base. And you have to fill it with water, and it has the Maryland Learning Links website. So thank you so much for letting us come. And I apologize that we went over. I really did think that we were 11:30.